What's up, everyone? Thomas here with For Real Movie News and Reviews. And today we are wrapping up Sundance for the most part. At the time of this recording, all of the premieres have happened. And so we haven't quite gotten to awards yet, but I figured that this is a good time to reconvene and kind of summarize some of our highlights that we did not talk about in our mid-festival video. So once again, I have on the line fellow For Real writer Taylor Beaumont.
Howdy, Thomas. How's it going?
Howdy. It's great. It's good. I'm excited. And then, of course, from Seattle, Taylor Baker from Drinking the Movies.
Howdy, Thomas.
Howdy. We're just all saying howdy. Let's put that in the description. Howdy. It's great. So for this video, I figured since we had already talked about some of our favorites on the last video, and I figured at this time we can talk about just some of the highlights that have stood out since that video, or even things that we didn't talk about in that one. So this could be a cool roundtable discussion, and yeah, just kind of pointing out some of the things that have stood out to us. So cool. Beaumont, we're going to start with you.
Oh,
what's a film that you have seen that had maybe the number one film that has stood out to you that we haven't discussed yet?
Well, I feel like we all might be able to find something to talk about with this one. It's definitely kind of been, we've been discussing it on our own outside of this podcast. That's You Won't Be Alone, which is a movie that has just kind of seared itself into my mind since my days watching it. It's one of those ones I just haven't been able to shake. The imagery that it gives you throughout, it's stuck with me, and I haven't been able to move on really. In fact, I've been really, out of all the films I've seen, it's probably the film that I've been craving a rewatch of the most. And that's just because there's a lot to it as well. There's probably things I missed. It is a sprawling kind of film. Sorry, I guess I should kind of give more background about it. It's a kind of a horror folktale kind of film, but it really kind of goes in different directed by Goran Stolevsky, and it stars a number of people, and I just say it like that because it's a story that focuses on a character who is a witch and a shapeshifter and can thus take on various forms throughout the film. So there's many different people that kind of assume these different roles. So there's many different actors playing the same, I guess, character. So you got Noomi Rapace. I'm probably messing up the pronunciation of that. Anna Maria Marinka, Alice Englert, and various others. And yeah, it kind of set in this 19th century Macedonian mountain village where this kind of witch appears and makes its presence known, but takes on different forms throughout the film, everywhere from, a villager woman to a man to a dog to other various, incarnations. And it's just a beguiling, spooky, but also strangely beautiful film as well. It's a grimy, it's a down and dirty film, lots of gore, lots of dirt, lots of filth, and you can really feel that. But it oddly enough finds a weird kind of the beauty in all that. And even in these horrific moments with, entrails being torn out of someone or being someone tearing out of themselves, there's these really beautiful and serene moments that come through all that kind of miasma that the film has going for it. And yeah, for those reasons and many more, it's been one of my definite highlights of this festival, and I can't wait to watch it again.
Yes, I concur. It's interesting because it's such a hard film to summarize. I had the opportunity to talk with the editor of the film, which is surprising that more people aren't requesting that interview, because it's a film that relies so heavily on really, really good editing. So before I go into my love for this film, Baker, I'm gonna have you toss in your thoughts about it.
I think that it's just a sensibility thing. I think that I differ in my appreciation of things like the entrails. littering the landscape as they walk away. You know, it's low budget, clever filmmaking at some level, but it's also reducing the believability of the witchcraft that's occurring on the screen for me. It's a little bit too neat and cutesy of like there's just these entrails, there's no blood there, you know, because she's undead ostensibly, but there's no other details of the viscera that was used to allow her to shapeshift in that moment. But there's equal moments that I think are stirring, like when she turns into the bird and flies into the cave, and that lingering moment where you don't know if it's the witch or not in that shadowy doorway. And you just kind of have to sit there and wait to see what's going to happen. You know, it's clear that this is a effective filmmaker that understands how to make choices. And I'm by no means saying that I don't think that this director is talented. It's just a film where some of the choices I didn't go along with the whole way, but I'm by no means saying that this is a bad film.
Yeah, Goran Selevsky, this is his directorial, feature-length directorial debut, which I think only makes it even more impressive in my mind. It's interesting, and I've made no secret about how I experienced this film. It's one of those things where I just wasn't vibing with it for the first like 20 or 30 minutes. I couldn't figure it out, couldn't get into it, wasn't really understanding what was going on. But there comes a point when my attitude shifted a little bit, and then shifted a little bit more, and then by the end of the film suddenly was in love with this movie. It just does such a great job in my mind portraying this experience of life through all these different perspectives, because ultimately this this witch character just she's inhabiting or shape-shifting into these various people in various forms, but it's like she's learning something every time she shifts, and there's a takeaway from every story. It's almost anthological in that sense, where
anthropological,
and yeah, however that's pronounced, in that sense, where moving from story to story, there's something to be gotten out of every form that she takes, and when I realized that was the direction of the film, it just clicked for me, and I was like, I am totally in on this. And yeah, it took me. I also am very excited to see it again. Like I mentioned, I talked with the editor, Luca Capelli, and had a conversation with him about how the editing process and how he approached this film. I'll be posting that. They'll probably be posted before this gets posted, so that'll be available. But yeah, it's just such an experience. Oh, and it's interesting because he also mentioned that in a lot of feedback, people had a hard time connecting with that first part, and so kind of hearing that from him helped kind of me understand like how tough it can be to get into this, but it's such an experience worth sticking around for, I think. And I think by the end, it's such a rewarding experience that I do want to go back and see that opening that I didn't connect with from the completely different perspective, and knowing what the film is about, and then understanding more about how I feel about that intro. So yeah, phenomenal film. Okay. Let's talk more about
So,
You Won't Be Alone.
before we move on, is the cat the witch or not?
Is the cat the witch?
Speaking of the beginning of the film.
Oh yeah. I honestly would have to go back and watch it again, because like I said, I mentioned this in the interview. It wasn't that I didn't like the opening; it's that I wasn't familiar with it. I didn't. It took some time to kind of understand what kind of movie this was, and so yeah, I need to go back and rewatch the beginning to better piece together what's happening in that intro. It's a very distinct style where I think I remember thinking that the cinematography was a little weird because it was always very close up on stuff, and And so, that was kind of different for me, but it all just makes sense later on. And so I need to go back and watch that intro in context. Why? Do you have a theory?
Not necessarily that I have a theory, but just with the way that it proceeds, it seems like, with her being a shapeshifter, that kind of starts out with us potentially seeing the world from the point of view of the witch as she's experiencing life, and that this is kind of the closest that she can get to it, without taking a human form amongst people. It's just an interesting motif potentially.
Yeah. Okay, that's such a good movie. Anyway, Baker, let's get one from you. What was a standout for you?
Well, since we haven't talked about it at all, let's talk about Cha-Cha.
Cha-Cha.
Unfortunately, we did talk about
it.
So we will talk about, as Beaumont put it, Amy Poehler's documentary directorial debut.
Thank you. Yeah, that's exactly how I put it right off the bat there. Yep.
So the film is Lucy and Desi. It's a very well produced kind of classic high production value documentary that's showing you footage that you feel kind of comfortable with, but maybe don't know the details of, especially for our generation, not having grown up with I Love Lucy really at all, unless it was through family members showing us a few episodes here and there. The film details the career of both Lucy and her husband Desi, and the journey that they took together to create one of the most important production companies in the history of Hollywood, which is Desilu. And it was eventually sold to Paramount, but it was Desi Arnaz had co-founded it with Lucille, and they basically created a way to shoot really high quality television shows much more affordably and consistently than their competitors. And she ran the business for a period of time after Desi left it. There's just a lot to the history of Hollywood. There's a lot to the history of television. There's a lot to the history of them. And it's really well presented. It's really simple to follow, but it has a deep emotional impact at the end when you're hearing from their daughter tell you what Desi's last days were like and how Lucy interacted with him during those. So there's just a lot to the movie, and although it's pretty by the numbers, it's exactly the numbers that I wanted it to be.
Beaumont, what did you think?
Yeah, I really enjoyed it as well. I watched it with a good friend of mine who isn't necessarily a big fan of I Love Lucy, but is a bit more familiar with it than I am. And we both just really got a kick out of just seeing all that footage from those episodes, because there were many, and they were in another era. All we would sometimes get is those weird reruns. I can't remember what the station was that played all those old shows, but that was like my only exposure to it. So just going back and through all that footage that Amy Poehler has so clearly lovingly brought together is a real treat. And the whole history of which I knew nothing about really going in, only that, who Lucy and Desi were, and that they had their show and their production company. But that's about it. They're, what they came from, Desi, especially his whole backstory, in Cuba and his family, and the wealth they had, then basically get knocked down to the nothing that they had, and how he rebuilt himself. And throughout his whole career, obviously had to struggle with just being a Cuban man in America, and then eventually married to a white woman, and how that whole played out. But it doesn't dwell too much on those those differences and what he had to overcome. It really just does celebrate all that was achieved throughout their long and very illustrious career. And I thought it was beautiful. It was certainly, paint by the numbers to an extent. It ticks off the things that you want to see. But it was easy to digest in that way. And yeah, just a great time, and I want to recommend it to a lot of people now because you know, I Love Lucy is just kind of everywhere. It kind of floats around everywhere in the background of you know, Hollywood and sitcom television history and stuff that I think people know of it by name, but they don't ever really go back and, you know, discover all that's going on there. So yeah, I would recommend it for sure.
Yeah, you know, I Love Lucy. My mom was a huge fan of I Love Lucy, and I remember being young and like seeing a black and white show on TV, but not really paying attention to it because that's not, at that point, it wasn't my kind of entertainment. I'm pretty sure it's on some streaming service here in the States. I think it's HBO,
Amazon Prime, I
Amazon Prime.
think.
Anyway, it's accessible now, and so I went back and I started watching it, and I'm like, this show is genuinely really funny. Like even now, I get really good laughs out of that show. And so it is really moving, I guess, to go to watch this documentary and have at least my experience with I Love Lucy, my positive experience with I Love Lucy, and seeing more of the background to what all went into that. I was familiar a little bit with some of that background, but it was nice to have that really fleshed out and put into this documentary, which is a fantastic experience. And so I think of the documentaries, this one is probably my favorite, except I haven't seen Navalny yet. That is on my watch.
I don't think any of us have. I think all of us
Yeah.
probably have to watch that tonight if we want to at all.
Yes. So my point being, yeah, I think tonight's the only time we can watch it. But my point being, of the documentaries that we have seen or that premiered in the typical window, this one is my favorite. And I think it is very well done, and I can't wait for it to hit the mainstream. I think it's gonna be a very, very popular documentary once it reaches mainstream audiences, especially ones who connected and grew up with I Love Lucy. So
Yeah, I think it'll play in a limited theatrical run at AMC's, if not Regal's, and the rest of the theaters around the world. But then it'll be streaming on Amazon Prime, from what I understand, pretty quickly.
that makes sense.
How about you, Thomas? What is one of your favorite films of the festival?
So here's the thing, right? When we do these festivals, I think our don't laugh at me. I think our
How can I say you without
our films tend to fall into categories, right? Categories of how much we like them. I think there's the really, really good ones. There's the ones that we thought were decent or okay, varying levels of good. And then there's ones that we don't like. And I think those are the three tiers that that at least I typically have films fall into when we do festivals. We've covered almost all of the things in my like top tier. I really, really enjoyed these films category. So the one that I will bring up that is in that category, but probably isn't very isn't within the realm of discussion that we typically have, is a short film. And yes, I'm going to talk about Starfuckers. Okay. So Starfuckers is a short film. It's about 14 minutes long. It's directed by Antonio Marziale. And he also co-stars in the film as well, and wrote it, by the way. And it's an interesting revenge film, but not revenge in the way that you think about it, but revenge in the sense of getting back at someone who wronged an entertainer in a unique way, I think. So essentially, the premise is that a director or producer is having an intimate evening with an escort, and so for the first half of the film, it's this evening of watching them kind of appease these like sexually tensioned desires of the producer. But there's a point halfway through the film where Antonio's character enters, and I think I'm going to kind of leave the description there because it's fun to just kind of experience it without having everything spoiled. I guess I will say there is a drag show that is a part of this production, and ultimately the experience overall is a very unique experience for me from a short film standpoint, because I think it's unconventional, but also fun to approach, I think. I don't know how better to explain it. It's a very different kind of short film experience, and I was very, very impressed with Antonio's performance here, especially having kind of watched his other stuff where it's a little bit more PG. And it's not that this isn't PG, it's just more I felt more like gravitas to how more maturity in how he approaches this performance. So
We have a very different idea of what PG means when I think about the beginning of this film and what he does on the
yeah,
tarp.
no, I'm sorry. I'm thinking that opening did happen.
Yeah.
But I guess I'm thinking more about the performance, because it certainly, it's broken up into two different, like there's two distinct parts to this film, and although the first half of the film, even though it is gritty, I guess you can say,
Yeah, it's kind of R-rated.
R-rated, yes. But then there's the other half, which is so which is I guess I can say it's a drag performance, and it's amazing.
Well, it's a revenge musical, kind of, right?
Yeah.
Even though it's not music, it's a speech. I don't know whose speech it is that they're doing, but it's a speech.
Yeah, so it's performance to old audio clips, and there's this theme of like power dynamics that that comes through in all the audio clips that Antonio performs. Anyway, I thought it was amazing. It's definitely one of my favorite experiences at Sundance as a short film. I don't usually talk about short films on here, but that is one I definitely wanted to mention. Beaumont, I don't know if you watched it, did you?
No, unfortunately, I didn't get a chance to. I apologize. I do want to watch it.
You'll get to it.
Short films are still available to watch, right?
Short films are available till the end of the 30th, I believe.
Wonderful. Yeah. So I'm
they might
be
they might be available until, oh no, the VR is available till tomorrow. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Either way, I'm gonna watch it.
Okay.
It's on my list.
Strongly recommend it.
Okay. Yeah. Sorry, I can't contribute more to the conversation on that one, but
that's
yeah,
fine.
it sounds cool.
Baker, what did you think?
I think it's inspired casting to put Jonathan Slavin, who people probably know best from Better Off Ted, as the co-scientist, as a abusing film producer or producer of some sorts, considering the man is, by all observable metrics, one of the sweetest people that works in Hollywood. But it's a strong film. It leaves a distinct idea of what the filmmaker wanted to accomplish in your head. It has multiple moments that you can remember. Obviously, none is as effective as the drag show at the end, but that opening on the tarp with the audio editing, as you hear a trickle, and you can't actually see if it's what you think it is, and you go, "What the fuck is happening?" And then, there's a few different layers to this short film. I would say it's among the best of the film film festival. It's in my top 5 short films that I've seen out of like 45 or 50 at this point. So it really is high up there. I would recommend it if people have time.
Yeah. All right. That's my contribution, and strongly recommend it. It's really good. I did have an interview with Antonio as well, and so that's also something that I expect to publish pretty soon. So yeah, that's a good conversation. All right, Beaumont, we're back to you.
Talk about palm trees and power lines, or I will slap you.
All right. We're talking about palm trees and power lines, which kind of came out of nowhere for me. Not that I, didn't know it was part of the festival or anything, but just that I just kind of had it down as one of my selections. I was just kind of like, oh yeah, this will be a slot to fill. But yeah, it really impressed me. I do admittedly have a soft spot and a affinity for films that explore adolescence, your late teens into your early 20s, and the trials and tribulations of going through all that. I admit still at my age now, I'm still kind of going back and reconciling and cataloging all those moments because of my past, because they're, as far away as you get from them, sometimes they're the most, vivid parts of your memory, sometimes I find, and they have the most they're the most tactile moments in your mind, I find anyways. So films that kind of focus on that stage of life, and the confusion and the awkwardness and the a lot of the fear and anxiety that goes along with that period that you go through is those ones hit a little harder for me, I think, than most other films. So yeah, Palm Trees and Power Lines is the debut feature from director Jamie Dack, who did a short of the same name, which he premiered at the 2018 Sundance Film Festival.
Not he.
So this is sorry?
It's a she. Jamie's a she.
Sorry, did I say he? Yeah, sorry, she. So she has expanded her short film into a feature-length film, and yeah, it tells the story of Leah, who is a 17-year-old girl, kind of in the feeling in the nowhere non-space of being that age and kind of at the end of high school, but looking towards the future and all that. And she gets into a relationship with an older man, a 34-year-old man, at least that's what the age he claims he is to be. That's played by Jonathan Tucker, and his name is Tom in the film. And yeah, it's an uncomfortable film. It's a film that kind of makes you feel a little queasy while you're watching it, as it's obviously detailing something that it's pretty obvious right out the gate that's pretty predatory. It's there's grooming going on. It's an unseemly situation, but it's very well acted. It feels very raw, very very real. It's also, I found it refreshing in that, because the description will obviously make you think of other films that have come out in recent years, like Firecrackers and Fish Tank, and these films that detail teen girls and getting in with like older men and experimenting with their sexuality and so forth.
Red Rocket,
exactly. And yeah, so it's easy to kind of just look at a film like this and say, oh, this is just another one of those, and kind of write it off and not look for anything exemplary here. But I think this film does stand apart from those films. A lot of those films, kind of the main character is kind of a particularly like feisty, kind of volatile kind of teen girl character, whereas this one is kind of more of a subdued, kind of awkward and fumbling kind of teen girl character that would I think many people wouldn't recognize in the real world, would kind of just like ignore. But there's a lot of these girls out there in America and North America and beyond that have these stories and are going through these things. And there are stories that I think are really interesting and need to be told. And this one kind of dials back the kind of character that this main is, and doesn't really give us that kind of that neon tinged super pop heavy soundtrack tone that a lot of the other films do as well. It really does kind of strip things down. Doesn't really give you that many other side characters or B plots to worry about. It's more straightforward and kind of deliberate in how it's told, but I really appreciated it. It had me gripped the whole time, had me feeling uncomfortable the whole time, but that's definitely part of it. And yeah, then it just ended on a note that was both beautiful and very soul destroying as well, which is a mixed weird thing to feel, but it still made the film stick with me in the end. So yeah, enjoyed it a lot. Would love to hear your guys' thoughts on it.
I have not gotten to this one yet. I don't know if I will this festival, which based on the feedback I'm hearing about it, I'm missing out on an experience at this point. If it wins an award, I might check it out this weekend.
When
we will see. I might make that make that an option. So I don't have a whole lot to contribute on this one, except that Beaumont does have his review for this film live on the website now, so you can read more about his thoughts on that. But Baker, now your turn to talk about Palm Trees and Power Lines.
Beaumont did a great job of teeing it up. I will say that based on memory, the thing that one of the things that makes it the most unsettling, besides the ending, which is just absolutely crushing.
Don't ruin don't
I
ruin it for
think
me, by the way. Like I kind of want to see this, and everyone keeps
it's a
talking about
slice of
how it
life
ends.
film, so
Yeah.
you can't really ruin it for someone, unless you say exactly what happens, which I won't do. But I believe in the opening minutes, she gets into a fight with her mother, played briefly and excellently by Gretchen Mol. And essentially, we find out that she's 2 weeks away, I think, from turning 18 or something like that. So we're putting a deft hat on a hat here. Instead of being really fumbling, we're getting into like the small minutia of how things are, and like that it doesn't even matter what age she is. The predatory behavior we're seeing is just disgusting, and that word soul crushing throughout. But Jamie puts in like these little details that make it almost seem like Leia's like creating the world that she wants to, and she's at that borderline age where she should almost be allowed to make these choices. And that's part of why it's so deeply uncomfortable to engage with as a film. And there is no alleviation. There's no bye sequence like in Red Rocket. There's just sitting in this uncomfortableness for almost 2 hours, and watching a character that you feel great compassion toward make choices, and in some ways not realize that she's being controlled and that she thinks she's making a choice that she's not. And it just slowly pulls at you. And it's I think being received partially poorly because it is so affecting, because you do have to sit in it for 2 hours. There is no happy moment. There's moments of elation that are undercut by the fact that like she's on a beach and her head is on this 34-year-old guy's chest, and there's kids playing volleyball or beach volleyball, in the corner of the frame, and you just have to sit here in this naturalistic camera and know that this is the life that she's leading, and all the pain that comes with that as a viewer processing how we interpret that, and then extrapolating like what that means for her future. It's just such a beautiful and expansive film, despite how harrowing and, as I mentioned so many times, unsettling it is.
Yeah, I'm intrigued, I guess. I don't know what I'm getting myself into whenever I do get around to it, but I'm very intrigued. It does sound like an experience, and you guys have sold me on it. So at some point I'll get around to that one. Yeah, let's move on. Baker, what's your next highlight?
Let's talk about palm trees and power lines. Oh boy.
Go again.
Let's see. Did we talk about Resurrection yet?
I was wondering when someone's going to bring up Resurrection, because we have not talked about that one yet.
Not yet.
Then I will bring up Resurrection as the next film in this tier of movies that were good that we haven't talked about yet. The story of Resurrection is essentially that Rebecca Hall's character, who I want to say was Margaret, maybe, is a business professional, and she has a deeply troubling past with a man played by Tim Roth when she was a teenage girl. I won't get into those details right now of what happened there, but following that relationship, she had a child. And if I remember correctly, she doesn't know who the father was. She just kind of met a bunch of men, and then one of them she had this daughter with that she's raising, and this daughter's about to go to college. So Rebecca Hall's character is in this in-between stage of her identity changing. She's no longer the teenager that had that experience with Tim Roth. She's a professional adult, but she built her life around being a mother. And now her child is moving on, and she doesn't really know what her identity is. And then we get introduced to this idea that Tim Roth is coming back into her life to torture her. And I will leave it there and open it up for discussion. Do you think that that's an accurate assessment of the beginning of the film, or would you differ with my readings?
No, I think that that's accurate. There's a lot of tension, I guess, that's built in the film, trying to figure out like what exactly is going on, because it shrouds so much in like secrecy and illusion. Like there's a whole lot of alluding to things, and you just don't know what to believe.
Yeah, I mean, as far as I know, half the film is not real.
Right, like yeah, exactly. I mean, I still think back on it and think, well, was that real? Like, was she making that up? Like, what's going? And that's what I like out of psychological thrillers is when I'm questioning my own sanity. Like, wait, hold on. What?
Yeah, this
what
is my You Won't Be Alone. Like, I need to watch this 7 more times and make sure that I thought I saw what I saw. Or heard what I heard. Beaumont had a great quote that I'm forgetting now. That like adds another layer to it at the end.
The only thing I'm gonna say is that I wasn't as affected by the ending as most. I think this was another one where a lot of people talked about how crazy the ending got, and so I was waiting for a super crazy ending, and it gets interesting, but it wasn't like what I was expecting for crazy. So I'm a little disappointed that
insane. What do you mean?
And maybe just
it's 3 logical fallacies minimum.
I'm not it is wild. I don't want to give away, obviously we're not going to give away the ending, but I guess I expected something more shocking, and more like viscerally disturbing, I guess.
Well, there's 2 biological events that can't happen that apparently do.
Yes.
And then that's reinforced by a secondary character acknowledging that what we're seeing is actually real.
Let me go back and just clarify that I'm not saying I know that's it. Let me just go back and say and express that I'm not saying that it wasn't a film that I enjoyed. Like, I did enjoy it. I very much, like, when I think of psychological
he said smiling, I did enjoy it with a grin. Let me tell you why I didn't like the ending, as he smiles.
I didn't not like the ending. Just expectations suck sometimes. Okay, so that is the moral of this story here. No, it's definitely a good psychological thriller experience. I enjoyed the ride. Like that little disappointment that I had with, oh, okay, I guess I can see what people are saying, but it wasn't what I was thinking it was going to do. That's the only like negative thing, and it has nothing to do with the quality of the film. So it's psychological thriller that I vibed with, that I was on board with, that I was super invested into, and it really does curate that atmosphere of mystery and confusion and just a really and that monologue that she gives is phenomenal. There's not even a whole lot going on, but the way that it's delivered, that long take, fantastic.
Yeah.
All right, Beaumont, you can talk now.
Yeah. No, I was just going to touch on that. Actually, I love a film that just knows when to just hold on a good performance and just, let the actor do their thing. And in this case, obviously with Rebecca Hall, what she's doing is just monumental. It's just earth shattering. That monologue is incredible. And I think her performance is probably maybe my favorite performance of the festival. Just cause like she just conveys so much, just in how she trembles with every word she's speaking sometimes, and how she's able to just dredge up so much, that you can clearly tell was deeply rooted in her past in her monologue and in other scenes as well, is pretty incredible. It's a film of great performances, Rebecca Hall and Tim Roth. Tim Roth is great as well. As he gets older, he's just looking more mousy and evil, just naturally, just in how he looks as a guy. So he's great in this. He just plays that wonderfully skeevy kind of, I don't know. He's just like, he's turning into a little gremlin kind of, just how he looks. But I love it. It's perfect for this film. Rebecca Hall's character says it's at the beginning of the film, or no, sorry, towards the end, but it kind of summarizes it all. And that's I let him poison my brain with lies. And this is a film where just there's, you know, you're feeling lied to, the characters are feeling lied to. There's just all this uncertainty, and like you said, Thomas, a lot that's being alluded to, and that all just kind of you know, really, you know, messes with your bolts. And that's why it was a great thriller in that sense. And what's, I guess, also kind of harrowing is the fact that Rebecca Hall's character has like this kind of wonderfully stable life at the beginning. Like, you know, sometimes they introduce a character that's, you know, a little unhinged to begin with these thrillers, and they already kind of have something amiss. But like with her daughter and with like the guy she's seeing, I think at the beginning of the film, everything looks to be pretty, like, you know, and her job and everything, she looks to be doing like pretty well, like in a nice stable place. And then this film obviously just, you know, is saying that the past comes back to haunt you in the worst way. And that's what I think was the most, you know, kind of spooky, kind of disturbing part of this story. So that's what really got me. And yeah, I really enjoyed it. It wasn't my favorite of the festival. I think, you know, I'd put it in maybe my top 5 or definitely my top 10 for sure. But yeah, it was good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Good experience with that one. I guess it's my turn.
Are we back
right?
to you, Thomas?
We must be back to me.
What is your second favorite film that we have not talked about yet?
Okay, so here's what happens now, guys. Preface this choice, not that I need to, but like we're dropping into my these were really good kind of films, right? So we're out of the top tier, like this is amazing, must see kind of stuff, and we've discussed all those, at least in my list. So what I am going to mention now, and I don't know if either of you saw this one, I didn't talk with you guys about it, but I'm going to talk about Emergency. Directed directed by Carey Williams, written by I'm going to mispronounce his name, KD Davalia. And this is a it's a comedy, and I guess the short description reads: ready for a night of legendary partying, 3 college students must weigh the pros and cons of calling the police when faced with an unexpected situation. It's obviously, like I said, it's in the second tier. Like, I enjoyed this one. It's a good one. There were things about it that I thought could have been better. I think that there was a segment of the film that kind of went off and kind of took a detour that took a while to come back on track from. But ultimately, I did think that it was pretty funny. There are some situations that I personally related with. If anyone's seen it, the classroom with the N-word, that scene has actually happened to me. That was a legitimate experience that I've had in my past. So it spoke to me on that level, like on a personal level with my own experience. And I think does a really good job, especially with the finale, really hammering home the message of like these lived experiences with being a minority or being Black and dealing with the cops. It's something that you know, more and more stories are coming out about, more and more movies are coming out about, and there's more and more awareness about it. And you know, as far as what to do about it, the movie focuses much more on the characters' experience and their effort to get through this night without having to run into the cops than it does about any statements on the legitimacy of police, any particular police officer. So I mean, I guess I appreciated the perspective that it stayed in, but I did find parts really funny. I think it's entertaining, and it does hammer home its message with its finale. So yeah, did anyone else watch this one?
Yeah.
From the director of Our Heart J. I did not.
That is one thing I was gonna say. I was hesitant about this film because I also wasn't the biggest fan of I think it's hashtag or pound J or whatever. I wasn't the biggest fan of that one, unfortunately, but I definitely appreciated this one a lot more. Beaumont, what'd you think?
Thomas, we were messaging each other while
we were.
Remember? Don't you remember the great time?
No, we did have a great time. I'm sorry. This is what happens at festivals. Everything just starts blending together, and I forget which movies I did what in, or which movies, you know, I'd start mixing up details. We synced up and we're watching it at the same time. Yeah.
Wait, you guys attended Sundance?
Here,
I know, right?
Here.
This was the true essence of virtually attending Sundance. We literally like, what scene are you on? All right, I'm on that scene. Let's get it.
We tried our best. We made it work.
So.
Yeah, I liked it a lot as well. It starts off really strong, introduces some great characters. They're super charismatic. RJ Seiler as Sean is awesome. I really liked him in Me and Earl and the Dying Girl. I think I remember him from. And I just think he's got a lot ahead of him still as an actor. So very excited to see where he goes from here. And I think he does a really good job in this one. This film definitely has the kind of the cliche dynamic of, one friend is the straight guy, the other one's kind of the more, wild card, likes to party a little harder. So there's that going on, but I think, a good buddy comedy night out kind of film needs that dynamic. That's really the heart and soul of these kind of films, and that's what we want to see. So it works out really well. But it's funny because it's like it's a party, it's a going out movie. They're trying to hit 7 big frat parties throughout the night, is I think the whole premise. But of course, with the reality coming crashing down on them, kind of almost literally, it turns into very sobering kind of film, which is kind of funny when you think it's a partying film. It's also kind of a sobering film as well. So that's an interesting dynamic, but it does do a really good job at staying consistently funny throughout, and still kind of, cycling back onto that great dynamic and that back and forth that the 2 main characters have, which is great. I think that's where the movie really draws its strengths from. And it gets a little bumpy towards the middle and maybe kind of the slightly the latter tail end, especially when the movie kind of shifts focus away from the 2 mains, and it starts kind of focusing on the passed out white girl character. I think her name's Emma or something. And it's just a moment in the film where it's just like, it just doesn't seem, faithful to the original intent of the film and the original story that they were trying to tell. And it kind of feel just a little pandering, and just kind of how it, made that the focus through that stretch. So I think we were talking about this, Thomas, when we were watching the movie, but like that, we were kind of like, what is it really going to go in this direction right now? But luckily it stuck the landing. I feel it both made a lot of sense as an ending, and it kind of, hammered home that, kind of sobering, like I said before, message that is kind of at the heart of this, which is, it's a very, very kind of harrowing and unfortunate one at the end of it. But this movie still was able to stay mostly lighthearted and pretty humorous throughout. So I also wouldn't call it my top 3 or 5 of the festival, but it still did a lot of things really well. And I think it will see some decent distribution. I think it's gotten picked up already. And I think a lot of people, distributed by Amazon Studios. Sorry. So it'll go on Amazon. And I think it'll see some good life on there. And I would recommend it to people for sure.
It does have, I think it will have mainstream appeal. Like I think it's produced in a way that's very approachable for general audiences. And actually, now that you mentioned that, this was like a week ago. I've seen like 20 films since then, which is a lot. But I think that experience with us like syncing up and watching it really reminds me how cool it would be if we could get watch parties a part of these film festivals, where there is a way programmed into the platform that we all buy our tickets or reserve our tickets or whatever, and then can start at the same time, so that we're all watching the same movie at the same time, and just be able to experience it all together. I think that was a really cool part of doing Sundance this year. So
I would settle for 1080p.
Oh, we're still on about this.
Watch with you guys. Well, that's why, at least in last Sundance Festival, there was the waiting room feature where you could all enter the room, and then the film would start automatically when the 15 minutes or whatever they gave you in there started up. So at least that kind of assured that everyone was kind of, synced up a little bit better than it is this year. But I agree. There should be, I don't know, maybe festivals are still banking on the end of COVID and by next year, who knows? But it would be a cool feature just in general, because I think online components are going to stick around, at least to some extent, with a lot of these festivals. So just having that chance for people to kind of, like the Netflix party or whatever you can do with people is, just a cool way to at least, get assurance that you're all kind of at the same moment in the film. So you're not all reacting to different moments and throwing, your other friends' viewing experience off. So yeah, that'd be cool.
For sure. Cool. We're going to go around one more time, and this is going to be kind of the honorable mention section. Right before we wrap up, just really quickly, one more movie that stuck out to you and a quick reaction to it. And we'll wrap this last round up pretty quickly. Beaumont, one more or an honorable mention you'd like to bring up?
Yeah, I'm going to give a shout out to the Quebecois film Babysitter, which is directed by Monia Chokri, who I believe it's her sophomore feature. It's a French Canadian production. It's in French Canadian, and it's wild. It's really a wild film right from the get-go. It just kind of hits you with this barrage of just like rapid edits, really uncomfortable close-ups, and just absurd dialogue. In short, it's the story about a guy who drunkenly makes a pass at a news reporter and then gets on the news, and then he kind of becomes a social media sensation. He blows up and he kind of gets canceled, as it were, and his job kind of puts him on, they suspend him or something, basically. And he decides to write a letter to the news reporter to apologize, but then instead starts turning this letter into this self-aggrandizing book about how he is a misogynist and how he wants to apologize to the all females everywhere, and makes it all about him, basically, rather than the actual sincere apology that he should be making it about. And then there's this babysitter that his wife brings into the equation, because he and his wife have a newborn baby, and she obviously stirs the pot and brings some weird sexual dynamics to the table as well. It's just a super bizarre, surreal, gonzo kind of comedy with crazy distinct visual look. Really the color palette is, these crazy vivid, but also like 70s aesthetic kind of colors, where it looks like, the camera's been smeared with Vaseline or whatever like that. It's got that look, that sheen to it. It's kind of set in a suburban kind of, I think it's supposed to be modern times, because there's lots of talk of social media, but they also use outdated technology. So it also kind of feels like it's set back in the 70s or 80s maybe. And it's definitely not going to be everyone's cup of tea. Definitely kind of an acquired taste kind of picture. But if you're kind of on board with it, the easiest thing I could compare it with is Greener Grass, which premiered at Sundance, I think 3 years ago or something like that. And if you kind of got on board with how weird and goofy that one is, then this one might be your thing as well. I thought it was really funny. I was laughing throughout, and it's a brief watch. It's only 80 or so minutes. And, if you just want to go along for the ride, then check this one out, Babysitter. That's my pick.
Awesome. Good. I didn't see it, but I'm going to take your word for it. Baker, what is your final choice and or honorable mention?
I'm gonna riff, and my honorable mention will instead be the strength of performances from the lead female actresses at the film festival. I think Regina Hall, Rebecca Hall, and Dakota Johnson each deserve more attention and accolades based on the performances that we've seen here. Even in films that aren't good, they're delivering notable performances. Dakota Johnson and Regina Hall both had 2 films at the festival. Each of them play, well, I suppose Dakota Johnson's character is probably closer between the films, but Regina Hall's characters are very different women, and the way that she brings them to life is really notable. So I will say that the excellent performances by leading actresses at the festival is my honorable mention.
I get the feeling that your last choice was probably going to be Am I Okay?
It would have been Happening, the
Really?
French film.
Oh, interesting. I really thought y'all were gonna vibe out over Am I Okay? And I was just gonna sit here and twiddle my thumbs.
No, Am I Okay is number 23 out of 45 films I've seen. So not too high on my list.
Too high.
But it's right in the middle.
Yeah.
I do
Middle
appreciate you pivoting and highlighting those performances, because you're right, definitely incredibly strong performances from those actresses here at Sundance, and so it was nice to be able to experience that, even if I didn't like all of the Dakota Johnson films. So
there were two. It's not all. It's one of.
And the one of. The other one was good. We talked about it, right?
Good. You're backing really off great now. You're saying it's good.
do we need to recap? Because I will go back and talk about Cha-Cha a lot more. I am going to end on a note that
it's okay.
Right. I'm going to end on a note that might be a little unconventional. I don't know if either of you two saw this film, but it was a documentary that I just took a chance on Sunday, and it's called My Old School. This one, it's interesting because I appreciated it for being the kind of mystery that it was. I don't know if everyone's going to appreciate it, because the way that it ends makes you, I don't know if everyone's going to buy into ultimately the level of gullibility that's needed to believe the story. So that might throw people off, but I did appreciate how the story was approached, how the circumstance unfolded, and how in the order in which it was told, that then has this big reveal about halfway through. And I'm not gonna lie, I'm also gonna appreciate that a lot of it was animated. I guess I'm just a sucker for animated documentaries for some reason. Now this is certainly no Flea, so let's not get that confused. But it is kind of, it has this that's like Daria kind of animation style, which was kind of cool to see this like retro animation in this documentary. But yeah, I really had a good time with it, just kind of following along with everyone giving their account of the story, and then someone else's account of how they perceived things happening, and then ultimately getting to the end. And it does reveal what actually happened, and then kind of leaves a question at the end as well. So it was just kind of a fun time for me. So that's the one that I'm gonna point out here as kind of like my my special find, I guess, at the festival for me. So cool. Does that wrap it up, guys?
Well, I think we just have to rub both of your noses in that I watched more movies than you again this year.
Here we go. Yes, last
true?
Last thing, let's get our film count out now. I know we still have a few more to go, but Baker, you watched exactly one shit ton. Beaumont, how many did you watch?
Shit ton. How many did I watch?
Yeah.
I actually just did a very modest 20 features, that is.
Nice.
Have watched other shorts on top of that and want to watch more shorts, but yeah, just 20 features. I pace myself a little more this festival, try not to burn myself out. And yeah, kind of did like a 3 features a day kind of thing. So yeah, coming in at 20.
That's awesome. I am currently at 27. So I'm gunning for 30 here pretty soon. I know.
Golf clap.
I feel so. I 27, and I didn't run myself into the ground while doing it. It was interesting. So the other night I did do a triple feature of Emily the Criminal, Piggy, and there was one other 90-minute one, but I didn't start until like 7 o'clock, and I was like,
Am I okay?
Am I okay? That's right. Thank you. This is why I text you everything that I'm doing, so you can remember for me. And I started at like 7 o'clock in the evening, and so I'm like, oh man, I really hope I can get through all these in a timely fashion, and I did. It was actually they were all very interesting films to watch, and breezy. That 90-minute thing that Beaumont pointed out. So all right,
yeah, it helped a lot.
Yeah, it did for sure. Let's go ahead and wrap it up. Baker, where can everyone find all of your Sundance content and all of your other content that you publish and produce?
Everything in the world is on drinkingthemovies.com. If you go there, you can find my link to Letterboxd and see the way too many movies that I watched at Sundance and the separate list of ranked short films. If you want to know which ones you should spend time on, that is a separate list of like 50, and it's exhausting, but I'm doing it.
That's awesome. Beaumont, what would you like to plug right now?
Well, For Real Movie News and Reviews, of course. I've got my reviews on the festival going up there. Some posted already, with some still to come. And beyond that, just on Twitter and Instagram at Best Real, BESTTREAL. And at Letterboxd, also at Best Real, but with only one T, because that's what I was able to work. So yeah, always happy to chat film on social media as well. You know, you guys know where to find me, but for anyone else watching, that's where to find me as well. And yeah.
Awesome. I have like a bank of content that I need to like wrap up and get published. And so I have like 3 interviews that I need to get published. I have a couple of reviews that are sitting waiting for just some formatting stuff so I can get those published. So you're going to start seeing a lot of content from me coming out over the next couple of days. But as Beaumont said, you can find all of that content at moviesforreal.net, for real spelled FORREEL. And you can also connect with For Real on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Movies For Real. You can also connect with me personally on Twitter and Instagram at Being TSJ. And so we have a few more movies to go. Obviously, awards are coming up, and we're looking forward to those. And as soon as I log off here, I am going to watch Navalny. So it should be an interesting watch. I'm hearing really strong reactions to it, and can't wait. So, gentlemen, thank you for joining me one last time for Sundance discussions on video, and hopefully we'll do this again in the near future at another film festival. But until then, for everyone out there listening, keep it for real.